Hello and welcome back to the 92 Ramble for episode 6 this week. The first topic we're going to be talking about is Man City. Boys, do we think they are the only team that will be challenging Arsenal to the title race?
Yes,
I think so, to be honest. Go on, Thomas, let you go first.
I think they've got 38 goals in 16 matches. It's quite frankly ridiculous. It's an average of 2.38 goals per game and actually 30.3. So yeah, they are the only team that can contend with Arsenal this season. It could be it could be a good race, but I do think Arsenal looks stronger at the minute.
I think my biggest worry about City for first 3 months into the season was the fact that they were very reliant on Haaland. At the start of November, he contributed towards 68.4% of City's goals this season. Now, it's pretty obvious that Haaland is head and shoulders the best player in the league. He's head and shoulders the best player in City's squad. But if he was to pick up an injury or a knock or be out for a number of weeks, who do they turn to score goals, with Marmoush being injured as well? So that was sort of my major worry. Another interesting stat, at the start of November, after their 3-1 win against Bournemouth, their second highest top goal scorer was Maximum Steve, who scored 2 own goals in a 5-1 defeat in September, which is quite a ridiculous stat, really, especially with the amount of quality that City have. I mean, he scored 17 goals in 16 appearances in the Premier League, 6 goals in 6 games in the Champions League. But I think a player that's stepped up last few weeks is Phil Foden. Now, he's picked a good time to step up with the World Cup coming this summer. Last season, I thought it was a little bit disappointing, but at the moment, he's City's second highest top goal scorer with 7 goals. Got a brace against Leeds, brace against Fulham, a goal against Sunderland and Palace. This month, he has really stepped it up. His pass completion rate is 89%. He's averaging about 0.46 goals per game. So he's really started to step up, and I think we're starting to see the City that were a wrecking force the last few years. I also think their front three of Doku, Cherki, and Haaland, I think they've got a nice blend in terms of pace, power, and trickery. And I think it's something that most other Premier League teams don't have. Well, I don't think any Premier League team has that sort of blend that City have. So I think second half of the season, I wouldn't be surprised if they win the league, to be honest. But I'm not making predictions just yet because I just told you some stats about Haaland and how significant he's been. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out with injuries and squad selections.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Foden's been brilliant so far at the start of this season. He looks like he's back to that Phil Foden we all know and love, especially when he was winning the Player of the Season award for Man City. Very good for England. I think he is very much back in talks to be in that World Cup squad, 100%. But I thought it was really interesting. Pep criticised Foden in his interview after the game. I don't know if you both saw that or both heard that, but he said that Foden is not at his best standard at the minute. And then Foden came and said afterwards that he agrees with him. What do you guys think about Pep's comments?
Look,
I
I do
agree,
think so.
to be honest.
Yeah, go on, Joe.
I agree. I think first few months he wasn't. I didn't think he was great, to be honest. I feel like he's very much been on a revival last few weeks. I mean, last few seasons he has been very hit and miss in terms of his goals and assists. Last season I thought it was a bit disappointing. A few seasons before that we saw the best of him. But I think ever since Euro 2024, it was a tournament where he didn't show his best ability. And I think we are starting to see that now. So I do think there is a lot more to come from Phil Foden, and he is going to have to step up because, as I say, they will need someone to look to other than Haaland. But I think Pep does make an interesting point, and Thomas, I think you'd probably agree with me there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if you look at Man City's stats, it's mainly Doku and Shirky who've got 10 assists between them. But you look at Haaland, he's got a score rate of 1.2. So I do think Foden can definitely improve. But it gives Thomas Tuchel a headache. Does he put Foden, Palmer, and Bellingham? Because obviously they can't play together. So yeah, I think it does. I think he can improve back to where he was 2 years ago, where he was winning Player of the Season award and scoring for fun. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think the form that he's on at the minute, if he keeps that up and he keeps scoring, assisting at the rates that he is, Man City do look offensively like a bit of an unstoppable force at the minute. But I think to highlight the game, the 3-0 win against Crystal Palace this weekend, I thought defensively they were superb. I haven't particularly been impressed with Man City defensively of probably the last 18 months. I don't think they've been brilliant, but I thought when watching the game, they really threw their bodies on the line, and that's kind of the mantra that you don't really see from Man City very often. Players like, Gvardiol, Nico Riley, Ruben Diaz, but I really wanted to highlight Mateus Nunes at right back. I thought he was excellent this weekend, playing out of position. Pep's been trying to mould him in for, I think, a year now, and I think he is actually becoming a key component in terms of being able to play out, but also offensively, defensively, brilliant. What have you guys made of his start this season?
Go on, Dennis.
Go on, Joe. I'm just going to try to think for a second. You go first, mate.
Pretty consistent. I think defensively, start of the season, City looked a bit ropey, but I think collectively, not just Nunes going forward, midfield, I think they're starting to come together to be that wrecking force that we expect City to be. I'm looking at their upcoming fixtures. They've got a lot of fixtures coming up. West Ham, which you'd expect them to win, with their defensive issues. Forest away, which will be an interesting one with the form that Dyche has got Forest in. And then you're looking towards New Year, Sunderland away. So they have got some difficult games coming up, a lot of away trips. So it'll be interesting to see if they can keep up this run of form. But defensively, I think they're a lot more well structured.
Yeah. And you look at their attacking statistics, and you can also look at defensive statistics. The average goal conceded is 1 goal per game, yet they have an exceptional goal difference of plus 22. I think they have solidified significance in the early part of last season. Obviously, getting more talent into the squad, and then almost bedding in Kushnov and who's the other guy? The other player they got in January. So I do think the defense is getting better, but still a slight dip in form.
Do you think Donnarumma helps with that as well, in terms of being that probably arguably top 3 goalkeepers in the world?
Yeah, look, I think obviously I saw James travel quite a lot last season. You saw similar mistakes again. So I think to be offered probably the best goalkeeper in Europe at the moment for 12 million euros was a steal for Man City, and it was absolutely no brainer. So I do think the experience, obviously at the top of the game, does help them. Yeah.
I agree. I think with Donnarumma, I think City wanted to get the deal done quicker than what they did. I think they always knew that James Trafford was always going to be sort of a backup goalkeeper who would challenge for the #1 spot. In my opinion, I don't think Trafford is #1 quality for a club like City. Had a very good season at Burnley in the Championship, but has he done enough to prove himself to get that move to City? I think they needed to get Donnarumma in because they need a goalkeeper that's good with the ball at their feet, playing out from the back. That's the way that Pep wants to play. We saw it years ago with Joe Hart. Joe Hart was a fantastic keeper at the time, couldn't really play with the ball at his feet. Under Pep's system and his way of playing, you've got to be good at it. And I think Donnarumma fits all the right boxes. The only thing I think he struggled at is he's not looked too convincing commanding his box with balls into the box. There was a goal that he conceded against Bournemouth where he didn't look very comfortable. But ultimately, the money they spent on him, as Thomas just said, he's an absolute steal, and they're building from the back, I think, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's been a steal for sure. Moving on to West Ham, I think they're in a bit of trouble, boys. I really thought that Nuno would get them out of the rot and a bit of dip in form, but I was looking at their stats this season. They've kept 1 clean sheet all season, which was not under Nuno. It was under Graham Potter against Forest in the 3-0 victory at the City Ground. But what did Nuno have to change? What do West Ham have to change to get a little bit of defensive stability? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think defensively is the main issue. They've conceded 29 goals in 15 games, which averages nearly 2 goals per game. Only bottom place Wolves have conceded more than them. Obviously, losing losing to Arsenal over the weekend. And they have a defensive index of just 58, putting them joint 17th in the Premier League. It's not an A for me either, with an average age of 27 years of age. So I think they need more defensive-minded players and also some leadership. Because you look at them, they don't have any leadership on the pitch. It almost looks like a poison chalice for Rob Edwards.
Yeah, I agree on the point on Wolves, but I think in terms of Nuno as a manager of West Ham, I think his team at Forest was built on that solid defence, ride games out, ride attacks out, and then go straight into, more of an attacking system. And I think he's done that so far in terms of going forward, but defensively, I don't think they've been good enough. What have your thoughts been on this, Joe?
I think ever since David Moyes has left the football club, I feel like they've lost a lack of identity because Moyes always had them to play deep defensive football where they would frustrate the opposition. They were very good at set pieces. They were strong at defending corners. But I mean, this season, at this stage of the season, they've conceded more goals from corners than any other team in Premier League history. And that's where the problem lies. Defensively, too fragile, not defending set pieces, not scoring set pieces either. I mean, in terms of this is another continuing problem as well. They're fifth in the league for most saves, and you think, oh, that's a good start. They're high up in the league for that. That their keepers making a lot of saves, but it means that they're too easy to play against in midfield.
Yeah.
Their back line's too open. Last season, 23-24 season, they were first in the league for most saves conceded. In the 22-23 season, they were sixth. So that's 4 seasons now where they've been in the top six for their keeper having to face most shots on target. So yeah, and I don't think it's just their defence either. I think their midfield's far too open, too easy to play against. They're not winning enough challenges in midfield. And your back line's only as good as the midfield that's in front of you. If your midfield's open, then defensively you're not going to be confident and you are going to be fragile. So I think they need to go back to that identity under Moyes where they played more deep football. They were trying to hit teams on the counter. But ultimately, when you've conceded the most goals from corners in Premier League history at this stage of the season, the problems are lying there, and it's something that they've got to work on the training pitch because everyone can see that, and the sooner they cut that out, I think they will be picking up points because going forward, they are good. They've got a lot of exciting players, but that's where the problem lies for me.
Yeah. Where do you think? Do you think West Ham are still getting dragged in to this relegation battle? And I still know they're in the bottom three, and I still think, for me personally, I think they are down there, probably fighting with Leeds as it stands at the moment. But Leeds keep picking up results at the minute. Leeds look a lot better. But do you see West Ham improving? Both of you?
No, personally. I see it now as a four-way fight between Wolves, Burnley, West Ham and Leeds. Wolves are gone. I think Burnley going, we've only got 10 points so far and playing awful. But West Ham still within five. But I think the problems with Leeds, they keep picking results. Obviously, like winning against Chelsea, the draws they've got, they are picking up points. But I do feel like West Ham will probably be down there just because there's no one else that can be replacing them. Your likes of Forest and your Brentford, they're not going to go down. Fulham are out of it. So, yeah.
Joe?
I think they can get out of it, to be honest. And the reason I say that is in their last 7 games, their 2 defeats have came against Aston Villa and Liverpool. They've got a point at the Amex. They've had a point at United, a point at Bournemouth, and then before that, they had them 2 home games in a row where they scored 3 consecutive goals against Newcastle and Burnley. So I do think the fight is there, and I still think they have a chance of staying up. But it's just about midfield being a bit more structured, defensively, defending your set pieces. So I don't think they're out of it yet, but with the amount of goals that they're leaking, that's ultimately where the problem is going wrong. It doesn't matter how many they score, it always feels that defensive line will let them down, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to another team that I feel has defensive problems at the minute is Bournemouth. Uh, they have gone 7 games without a win, 17 goals conceded in that winless run. Obviously, drew 4-4 at Old Trafford last night, which is not a bad result, but neither teams look like they could defend their goal properly. Do we think they will get dragged into the relegation scrap?
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because I think they started off the season very well. They set the record actually last season for most Premier League goals with 58 in their club's history. They had the best start to the season in their history, 18 points from the first 9 matches. And I think the expectation around Bournemouth was a little bit too high. I think for me, pre-season, a good season for Bournemouth would have been mid-table. But I think because of the start they had, people were expecting them to be a unit that they weren't, if that makes sense. Um, you know, they're proving that they can score goals. They're very exciting to watch going forward. They're averaging 13.1 shots per game, so they are the entertainers to watch going forward. They're proving that they can't compete with the big boys. A 3-1 defeat at City, a 4-0 defeat against Villa, a 4-2 defeat at Liverpool. But with the amount of attacking quality they've got, I don't think they'll be dragged into a relegation battle. I just think that maybe the expectation at the start of the season was a little bit too high. But I mean, if they were to finish mid-table, I definitely think that is a very solid season. I can't see them being dragged in the relegation battle. I just think they've got too much going forward, and they are a competitive team to watch. So I'd be very surprised if they're in the relegation battle. And they've got a very good manager as well. I mean, what a job he's done so far.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the other thing to think about is the Bournemouth have lost a lot of the defensive structure last season. Aretha Balaga's obviously gone to Arsenal. Howson's gone to Real Madrid, and Kirkhead's
Zabarnyi.
gone to Bournemouth.
Zabarnyi
So
went to PSG as well.
yeah, so I
Mm.
think that's the whole back five ripped apart realistically. That it is high risk, high reward, and they've conceded 28 goals a game, which is 1.75 per 28 goals in the season, 1.75 per game, but they've scored 25. I watched the game last night. I don't know how either team didn't score because it was end to end stuff. It was good football to watch. Um, and they've had a real mixed bag of results: 4-4 against United, 3-2 win over Sunderland, and then 4-0 to Villa. It's almost you never know where you get with them. So yeah, I think what really helps them is that Semenyo's not going away to AFCON. He's got 7 league goals and he's going to be there for the next month, whereas other players might be leaving towards AFCON. So I doubt they'll get into a relegation battle purely because how poor we've been, Wolves, West Ham, and Leeds have been. I just think it's going to be between those 4 sides at the moment.
Yeah. I think you both make good arguments for it, but I do agree with the defensive structure thing. I think they are probably the entertainers of the league in terms of that game last night. It was unbelievable to watch from a neutral's point. But yeah, Bournemouth are a weird side, as you said, Joe. Everyone's expectation at the start of the season was probably mid-table. Lost a lot of players. They'll probably build. They went on that really good run at the start of the season, and now they've dropped off and not won in 7. So, I don't really know where it lies with Bournemouth, but I think the Semenyo not going to AFCON really does help. Means that they keep their best attacker really, and yeah, I'm not sure where I'd predict them to finish at the minute. Moving on to the Tyne Wear Derby, first one of the season. Myself really enjoyed it. Thought it was brilliant, really petty from Sunderland, which I quite liked. I thought that was a really good touch, not having the Newcastle badge, having visitors on the scoreboard, for example. And then the team photo afterwards to, poke back at Newcastle for doing it 2 years ago in the FA Cup. I want to go on Sunderland first, boys. We talked about how impressive they are this season and how well they've done, but I think the real thing we need to talk about is the recruitment. I think Sunderland's recruitment is been brilliant. The types of profile they've brought in, the likes of, Mukiele, Brian Brobby, Siddiqui in midfield. There's so many players you could talk about. Granit Xhaka, there's so many. Do you think that is the model promoted teams need to be going off of Sunderland.
Yes, absolutely. Look, I think it's really annoying to see that because we tried it 2 years ago, it didn't work. Whereas Sunderland now have got the formula that I think all newly promoted sides need to follow is buying that talent for a cheap price. Look, Granit Xhaka is probably the sign of the century for Sunderland, and then you just keep bringing that quality. But then you like Dan Ballard have also stepped up to Championship. He's been with them for nearly 6 years now. He's gone all the way from League One up through the league with them. So it's really impressive to see.
Yeah, I think in terms of the recruitment, they have recruited very well, but I don't just think it is the recruitment. I think going back on Thomas's point, if you watched Dan Ballard play this season and you knew nothing about him, you would think, God, this guy is a unit. He's been playing Premier League football his entire life. Like he has been that good. I watched him on Sunday. Every ball in the box, he was first to. Most clearances in the match. Won most of his aerial battles. But then the players they're bringing on as sub, I mean, Wilson Isidore, I've been really impressed with him this season. I think Jury was out to whether a lot of the players in the Championship were good enough to make the step up. But I feel like Sunderland are in that position where a lot of clubs who've been promoted to the Premier League haven't had players in the Championship that were good enough to make the step up. But I feel like Sunderland are an exemption. So yes, they have recruited very well, and Granit Xhaka, I agree with Thomas's point, probably their best signing in a century. Um, but it's not just the fact they've spent money, and it's not just the fact they've strengthened in areas. It's the fact that they've been promoted with a team or a group of players that are good enough to make the step up. And I don't think a lot of clubs have had that privilege.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've got to touch on Newcastle as well. I don't think they've won a Tyne Wear Derby in the Premier League in a long, long time. I don't have the years. I don't have the game.
It's
The
the
games it's
10th.
been
I think it's the 10th,
10th.
10th loss.
Wow, you see, that is for me ridiculous. You know, especially of recent times. You think of Newcastle, you think of Sunderland, you think Premier League, Champions League, and then you think the Championship. But how the tides have turned, it's ridiculous. But I'm kind of focusing on recruitment here again. I think Newcastle's recruitment needs to be looked at. They spent 100 million on Anthony Elanga and Jacob Ramsey this summer, which is not looking like very good bits of business. I think on Sunday they looked spineless. I thought they looked toothless, not very ruthless at all. They really struggled. I just want to get your guys' thoughts on A, the recruitment, but B, the game and how they set up.
Look, I think
I feel
Newcastle.
like with the
Go on.
go on. I feel like with the recruitment, when they qualified for Champions League last season, it really feel like in the summer they made a statement signing. They spent a lot of money, but probably on players who weren't worth the price tag. And it's not just that; it's a lot of the signings they made were injury prone. Johan Wieser, for example, 55 million. You know, until he came on the other day, I almost forgot he plays for Newcastle. He's made 3 appearances. He picked up a knee injury. Jacob Ramsey as well only made 12 appearances before picking up an injury. So the signings they made in the summer haven't really had time to settle because of that. Uh, and then you look at positions like the right wing. I mean, apart from Jacob Murphy, they don't really have a natural right winger. They've got players who can play on the right, but who aren't naturally right-sided. For example, Anthony Elanga and Harvey Barnes. I mean, Harvey, you saw Elanga at Forest. I'm sure you probably know his best strengths better than me. But I feel like they just need a little bit more quality on that right-hand side. I think Madueke would have been a great signing for them. They were linked with him, but they couldn't get that over the line. So I just feel like they've been unlucky with injuries, the players that they've signed. It feels like they spent a lot of money on players who aren't worth the price tag, but it doesn't really feel to me like they've made a statement signing, especially when they qualified for the Champions League. And the amount of money they've got, it is disappointing. And Newcastle can be a joy to watch sometimes, but I think the pressure is really on Eddie Howe. I think you can blame recruitment to an extent, but that game on Sunday, I mean, Sunderland's 6, 7 years ago were got back-to-back relegations. 6 years later, they're above Newcastle, who are one of the richest clubs in the world. There is a big problem going on, and I think the pressure is really mounting on not just Eddie Howe, but the owners and where they're spending the money and who they're spending it on.
look with Newcastle, they had the British record transferring Isak. I feel like with the signings, they've almost signed name but no real quality. Alanga an upgrade on Jacob Murphy? No, probably not. Is Wissa and Volkswagen upgrade on Alexander Isak? No, probably not. Was Wissa needed? Possibly not, because they got Volkswagen. So do I think it is an issue with the recruitment, but I do think almost they need someone to almost bring in a football side. 'Cause it feels like they're just buying players with names and then not actually getting anyone that will improve the squad. And they've got 125 million from Isak, so now, whether or not the business was very much centered around the fact that they didn't know whether Isak was going to go, he wasn't, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Just touching on Alanga, for example, I watched him last year. He was Forest's best player at the end of last season. I thought he was really, really good. Proper purple patch. Him and Chris Wood linked up really well. But I think the reason they signed Alanga was for Isak. They're both Swedish. They both know how to play with each other. They do it, every single international break. And I thought that was the kind of incentive around it. And if you would have told me that, as a Forest fan, that we're getting 55 million for Anthony Alanga and how he's performed this season, I'd have laughed at you. I'd have literally laughed at you because he's not been very good. And I do think Newcastle's recruitment needs to be looked at. Don't get me wrong, they've signed Malik Tior, who I've been impressed with actually this season. I think he's been a good signing at centre back. And, Joe, you touched on the injuries, Hall being injured, Joe Linton got injured, Ramsey's been injured, Viss has been injured, Livramento's been injured, the list goes on, Botman, etc., etc. But the pressure's on Eddie Howe now. You can't go into a Tyne Wear Derby that you haven't played in a competitive league game in that long and not even look like you want to put a fight up. And I think that's the thing that will tip Newcastle fans over the edge. I think just after that game, they are now looking at Eddie Howe and thinking, how are you going to react? And also, another thing that I saw today was that Eddie Howe and Bruno Guimaraes have had a fallout, apparently public fallout, and Bruno G put something on his Instagram story this morning about it, which is very interesting. I didn't properly read it, but I think that's something that we can probably come back to in a couple of weeks, and we might have a lot more to talk about it. So yeah, that's interesting. Moving down the divisions to the Championship now. My question to both of you have been, who has surprised you the most this season? We're nearly halfway through the Championship. Who surprised you the most and why? Go on, Joe.
Derby's not allowed, Joe.
Suppose.
Preston North End to me. Sorry? No, not Derby, no. Good win against Wednesday, but I've gone Preston because they're a club who they're a well-established club at level. They're sort of like the Championship version of Palace, where they're always in and around mid-table, but they're sort of one of those clubs where you think, when are they going to kick on? And I think this is the season they are going to kick on. I mean, they're third in the league on 35 points, 7 points off the automatics. They've got one of the best defensive records in the league. But the team they played against Oxford, it's a very young, exciting squad. I mean, they had Daniel Jefferson, who's 22, Lewis Dobbin, who's 22, Thierry Small, who's 21, Harrison Armstrong, who's only 18 from Everton on loan. But even the older players in the team, they're in the prime of their career. They've got Ben Whiteman, who's 29, Daniel Leverson, who's 28. I thought he was probably a little bit older. It feels like he's been around the block for a while. And they've got a very good manager. I thought Heckingbottom did a good job at Sheffield United. He sets up his teams to be compact and well structured. And because their team's so young, they're not really a possession-based team. They like to play on the counter because they've got a lot of pacey forwards and intelligent wide players. And I think this could be the season where they are the dark horse to get playoffs. I think we saw it last season with Bristol City. I think we're starting to see it now with Millwall. But as I said before, they're always one of those clubs where you think one season they're either going to go flying up the division or flying down the division. And I think this season, with a very good manager and a young, exciting squad, this could be the season where they really kick on. And I hope they do. I think it'd be a great story.
Mine is a bit more obvious. It's Coventry. It's just ridiculous. They're 5 points clear. It's 47 points after 21 games. Ridiculous. You look at the attacking margin. They've scored 52 goals in 21 games. The next highest is 35. A goal difference of 30, which is 11 best, which is 11 more than the second best. They've got an XG of 42.2 by the end of the season, and they are still unbeaten at the moment. They're averaging 2.24 points a game, which is on track to equal to just fall short of Reading's record. They're on track for over 114 goals. The record is 121, and they're on track to smash Reading's goal difference 67. This is just ridiculous. I went to watch them last weekend. It was just the attacking threat every time they came forward. They looked like they were going to score goals. And it's not just like City one player. Brandon Thomas Santi, Hadji Wright, and Ellis Sims have got 10, 8, and 7 goals respectively. And then in the midfield, like Victor Torp, he's got 10 goal contributions across the season. They've got 18 goals and set pieces, and at the moment they've achieved an 11-match unbeaten streak, starting with a huge 7-1 win over QPR.
Yeah, Coventry are ridiculous. You know, I think it was the first week that we spoke about it. They're just steamrolling the league. It seems at the minute. I know that, you know, they're just brilliant. I'm going to throw a bit of a rogue shout out there, but I've been very impressed with Wrexham this year. I really thought that they'd be down, like fighting, struggling. I know that they are. I think they're 15th. I think at the minute. And you know, I think the signings were really good. Doyle at centre back, experienced Championship defender after last season. Kiefer Moore, you know, Windass. There's a lot of good players at Wrexham, and I had really big doubts on Phil Parkinson. To be fair, I thought, is he going to be the guy that could take the step up? So I thought the players were good enough, but is he going to be good enough? And I think that he's proved that Wrexham and himself can certainly cut it in this division. I don't think they'll be in any danger of getting relegated. I think they'll be probably mid-table or lower mid-table, which is, you know, I think if you asked any of them at the start of the season, they would have taken that. And I think that they're my surprise package for the year. Again, still halfway through. Who's a team that's disappointed you the most for the Championship this season?
I've got to say Leicester. They started quite poorly and then obviously on the way back now, but I thought they were out there along with Ipswich and Southampton. I think most of all three of the relegated teams haven't impressed me most as I've seen in previous years. They have all started quite poorly and obviously are up there now. So yeah, I'd probably say Leicester.
Joe?
Did say disappointed, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I don't know if this would be a disappointment one, but I thought that Portsmouth would probably do a little bit better. I feel like I thought they would have gone down last season, to be honest. I just think they didn't have that much quality going forward, and they got themselves in a position halfway through the season where they looked done and dusted. They turned it around second half of the season, and then you sort of thought, you know, they've given themselves something to build on here. But this season, they've been unlucky, to be fair. They've had a lot of injuries, a lot of defensive injuries. I believe they've had Josh Knight injured, Ogilvie, Regan Poole. Connor Shaughnessy. So a lot of players who contributed to their success of staying up last season, but they're the second lowest goal scorers in the Championship behind Sheffield Wednesday. I mean, is Colby Bishop good enough to be playing in the Championship? I think he was a very good League One striker, scored a lot of goals in that division. Got double figures last season. I believe it was 11. But I'm not quite sure he is the right man going forward. But I just thought with them staying up last season when it looked like they were destined to go down, I thought it would give them a platform to build, but they've sort of gone the opposite way. And it looks like they've probably got second season syndrome. It'd be interesting to see how long Mourinho lasts because they are sleepwalking into relegation now. But I suppose with his success second half of last season, they think that he might be able to do it again. But it's not looking promising for them.
Yeah, I agree. I think the injuries have really dealt a big blow to them, as you said, kind of losing that structured back four that they were playing last year. So it's one of them. But the team that I've been most disappointed with would have to be Sheffield United. I think you kind of expected them to do a lot better. Well, with the start, I know they've picked up form of recent and look like a lot better team now. Chris Wilder's changed his system, changed his approach after getting sacked and then rehired, which just seems ridiculous now that you look at it and think about it. But losing on Friday, I thought they'd go to West Brom and win. To be honest with you, under the form they had, and I thought they looked. I don't know what the word is. I thought they were really lackluster in terms of offensively, defensively, but I thought that they, as the players, thought it was going to be a lot easier game than they thought it was. It looked like they were trying to stroll to a win instead of having to fight for a win, and I think they got done by that. And West Brom caught them out, came out flying in the second half, and scored 2 goals. So fair play to them. But I do think Sheffield United will be probably in the playoffs by the time at the end of the season with all the quality that they've got. Now moving on to the quiz. Just a 10-question quiz today, going to be mostly Premier League. I do feel as if this will be an interesting one this week. I've got some fun little questions. Okay, question 1. Since the Premier League era began in 1992-93, how many times have Arsenal finished second?
18.
Oh,
That is incorrect.
8.
Close.
9.
Correct, Thomas. 9 is the
Nice.
correct answer,
Wow.
which is ridiculous, actually. I thought it'd be a lot less, but I was looking at the dates earlier, and it just like 9 times is crazy. Okay, question 2. Where did Bournemouth finish last season as their highest finish ever? You give me the position, and if you can get how many points they scored, you get bonus points.
Was it 10?
They were thereabouts, weren't they?
10th is incorrect.
It was similar to that.
Yeah. Any more guesses?
Yeah.
Was it 9th?
It was 9th. It was 9th. Yeah, correct. Do you know
In
how
terms
many
of
points?
points.
Was it 58?
I think it's 56. Very close. Chin up to Thomas. Joe, I feel as if you're at a big disadvantage with you not having good internet today. But hopefully you can get some right
Got
here.
Minute 60.
Question 3. Fabian Hertzler became the second Brighton manager last season to win Manager of the Month. Who was the last Brighton manager to win the Premier League Manager of the Month?
Chris Hughton.
Correct. Chris
Deserving.
Hughton is the correct answer. That is 3-0 to Thomas. Okay. Question 4. Which club has been relegated from the Premier League the most?
West Brom.
Sheffield United.
Both incorrect.
Burnley.
Incorrect.
Fulham.
Forest.
Incorrect. What did you say, Thomas?
Fulham.
Also incorrect. One guess each left.
Right.
A bonus point if you can tell me how many times this team has been relegated as well.
I feel like we've done this
Watford.
question before.
No. Well, we might have actually.
Norwich.
Yes, correct. Norwich is correct.
Yeah.
But how
I
many
should have said that
times,
first.
Joe? How many times for a bonus point?
Oh wow. too many. I'm gonna say 6.
Correct. That is
Yeah.
double
Wow.
points for Joe there. Nice. It's good. So that leaves it 4-2. No, 3-2. 3-2, sorry. Going on to question 5. Which stadium has hosted the most Premier League matches?
Old Trafford.
Which stadium?
No.
Goodison Park.
Stamford Bridge.
No and no.
Anfield.
Correct. Joe's back in it. 3-3. 3-3.
Just a shame I have
Question
bad
6.
internet.
Yeah, it is. Question 6. Which player has the most Premier League assists of all time?
I should know this.
Ryan Giggs.
Correct, Thomas. Well done. Well done.
How the hell did I get that one?
I thought that would be quite an easy question. I think he's winning it by like 50 assists as well. I think De Bruyne is second, and Giggs is like 50 above him, which is ridiculous.
I was thinking De Bruyne, but then I thought
De Bruyne was going to be my next answer, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Question 7. Who was the first non-British manager to win the Premier League?
Arsene Wenger.
Correct. Good. Good. Nice. That is 5-3 to Thomas. This is a tight game here, boys. Question 8. Which team recorded the biggest ever away win?
Man United. No,
Leicester, Southampton 9-0.
Oh, that was like both bang on the same time that you said it.
I think I just snatched that.
I'll be honest, Thomas, you gave a wrong answer, so I'm giving that one to Joe. That is 5-4. 5-4.
5-4, one more, I think.
No, 2 more. You got question 9
more.
and 10. Question 9.
2
Who
more.
is the youngest ever Premier League goal scorer?
Wayne Rooney.
No.
Wayne Rooney? No.
No, it's just that Thomas had
Wow,
already
I
said
thought
it, and then
Wayne.
you
I said
cued
it
in,
first.
you queued in like 15 seconds afterwards. I'll be honest, I didn't even know this one.
Oh, Ethan Nueri.
No. It was in the 04-05 or 05-06 season. Everton versus Crystal Palace, if that gives you any help.
Mikel Arteta.
No.
Uh,
I'll be honest, I wouldn't have known this one. Are we getting a pass?
Yeah, I
I'll
think so.
probably have to pass.
Okay. It was James Vaughan at 16 years of age for Everton. Exactly who, we'd probably get slated for that, but oh well. Last question. Finish it on an easy one. Which club holds the highest points total in the Premier League?
Man City.
Man City.
Ooh. I
It's
think
fair,
that
that's
was
fairly
Thomas.
even.
I think that was Thomas. I think it was Thomas just. So that is 6-4. That is the quiz, boys. Well played again this week. Thank you for watching this episode of the 92 Ramble, episode 6. We hope you tune in next week.